Li Ho received a punishment that involved getting both his limbs amputated, which according to Tang was a deserving punishment, considering how he broke the rules. Tang further mentioned that he was lenient on him and asked his henchmen to take Li Ho away. One of the henchmen then told Tang about the punishment that the master had decided, which even Tang thought was too much. However, the henchman commented that it was a warning and talked about their master's temper. Tang eventually agreed, making Li Ho say that he might be strong right now, but there would come a day when he would get what he deserved. The henchman then took Li Ho away and threw him out of the building, suggesting that he go somewhere far away, or he might just be crushed like a fly. Tang then went to his master and informed him that everything went according to plan, which delighted the master as he told Tang that he most likely had a bright future ahead. Master Ling then offered a drink to Li Ho and drank some of it himself, forcing Tang to drink it as well. Elsewhere, Li Ho struggled to descend the stairs and ended up falling to the ground, but after getting back up, he walked past a street where a waiter interrupted him but told him to leave after noticing his condition. Li Ho argued that he was not a beggar and had some money, but when the waiter checked, all Li Ho had was some pocket change. Li Ho started begging the waiter to let him eat something and promised to pay back double when he got the money. Luckily, the waiter agreed but only gave him some tea, but it was difficult for him to pour the tea himself. Seeing Li Ho's condition made the other customers and the shop owner tell the waiter to get Li Ho out, but the waiter offered him some chicken instead. Just when Li Ho was about to eat it, the waiter took it away and started messing around until Li Ho fell on the floor. Everyone was laughing at Li Ho until he started biting the waiter's leg, causing the waiter to scream and hit Li Ho until he finally let go. Having no other choice, soon after, Li Ho woke up and found himself in a coffin-like box where an old man greeted him and helped him sit up. Surprisingly, the old man had made some soup for Li Ho and told him that he mostly picked up people who passed away but brought him to his house after seeing that he was alive. The old man asked Li Ho to call him Chin as his love for gold made other people call him that. With that being said, Li Ho introduced himself as an escort, informing Chin that those people had turned their backs on him. Chin agreed, saying that he had heard many good things about Lin, but deep down he was aware that he was very cruel and evil. It turned out they bought coffins from Chin and sometimes even bought several coffins per day. Li Ho commented on how he must have been blind to help such an evil man, but Chin reassured him that he was young back then and could restart his life. Suddenly, the black henchman appeared and ordered some coffins when they noticed Li Ho, commenting on how he was still alive and asking the other henchmen to eliminate him.
Won't you stay like me? For the love of...
Get out my way, or I'll kill you too.
Mr. Paul!
I'll leave it today.
After they left, Chin advised Li Ho to run away and go as far as possible and never come back. With that being said, Li Ho left the town and tried to drink water, but ended up falling into the river. He somehow managed to keep himself from drowning, which allowed him to drink some water, but the water flow forcefully took Li Ho away, and he found himself at an unknown location. Afterward, Li Ho tried catching some ducks but failed and noticed some grains of rice nearby. After eating the rice, Li Ho went to the nearby pigsty and started eating the pig's food when a man saw him and started calling Li Ho a ghost. After Li Ho reassured him that he was not a ghost, the man questioned his terrible state, to which Li Ho replied that if he could somehow survive, his success was inevitable. From that day onward, Li Ho started working for the man and took care of his farm, played with the kids, filled water from the river, and dragged heavy wood from the forest. Meanwhile, Lin took Tong to a forest and poured acid on his body while the henchman pinned him onto the ground. Tong somehow managed to tackle the henchman, but it was all for nothing as they soon cornered Tong once again and started crushing his legs. This whole situation made Tong call Lin a sadistic monster, but Lin couldn't care less and told Tong that people who went against him lost their life in the end. After he walked away, one of the henchmen told Tong that he knew too much, and the boss was forced to get rid of him. Following that, the henchman took Tong away and ended his life while Lin laughed. After getting rid of Tong, Lin went to a dojo owned by Long and started beating his men, telling Long to hand over the dojo, but he refused. Lin threatened Long once again.
Young Men Casino opens tomorrow.
Sure.
where one of his men arrived who had failed to collect rent. Lin decided to take the matters into his own hands and went to the antique shop to collect his due rent. The shopkeeper told Lin that the business was not doing well and asked for some time, but Lin punched him in the face and started breaking his goods, forcing the shopkeeper to pay the rent that instant. On the other hand, Liho was busy finishing when he noticed Tong in a really bad condition nearby and went to confront him. Liho commented on how retribution came sooner than he thought, and Tong replied that he deserved it for all the misdeeds he committed, asking Liho to end his life. However, Liho answered by crushing his legs and said that he would enjoy torturing him even more. Following that, Liho took Tong inside a cave and mentioned how Tong was in the same spot that Liho was a few days ago.
No, please listen.
I don't hear a word.
No.
Until they both heard a voice of another man, making Liho leave Tong for a second and look for the source of the sound. Eventually, he found a bald man who had locked his feet behind his head and was stuck. The bald man then asked Liho to help him out, advising him to use his legs if he didn't have his arms. Luckily, he managed to help the bald man out, who later noticed Tong and asked Liho to forgive him as it was a good virtue. Apparently, the bald man had heard their whole conversation and commented on how they made a good pair, considering how one of them couldn't use his legs while the other one couldn't use his arms. He suggested the two of them work together in order to get their revenge and talked about how he could take in some students. From that day onward, both Tong and Liho started training under the bald man's guidance, and after completing their individual training, the two of them started improving their teamwork. Liho used his legs to pull the heavy concrete while Tong assisted him using his hands, and everything was fine until their coordination broke, making Liho hang upside down. Afterward, Liho started practicing using his non-existent arm, and seeing them work hard made the master happy. Tong started shifting all his power to his arms, while Liho made sure to make his feet as accurate and flexible as possible. Later, the masters started teaching some martial art tricks, including the usage of arms to Tong, while he taught the art of Taekwondo to Liho. The next stage of their training was to take on the master, and while they struggled at first, the two of them started working together and managed to tie their master using a rope, later laughing about how it turned out. After they were done with training, Liho and Tong visited the same restaurant where Liho was once beaten, and the same waiter welcomed them in. He tried messing with Liho, but was caught this time, and Tong offered him some money every time he got kicked by Liho. The waiter happily agreed, and Liho kicked him pretty softly the first time, and he earned himself some money.
Master, please do me a favor. Kick me again.
Not too hard. Please, kick him.
Ow! Please! Ah! Hey, stop! Stop!
Elsewhere, a henchman informed Lin that some thugs had managed to steal some jewelry from a shop, and he decided to steal the jewelry from the thugs, asking the henchman to take both black and white henchmen with him. After teaching the restaurant owners a lesson, the two of them went out and noticed Lin's henchmen going somewhere, and they decided to follow them. The henchmen made their way into the forest, where they found the thugs looking at the jewelry they had stolen and fighting amongst each other about how they would be distributing the profits. Suddenly, the henchmen yelled at them to stop fighting, advising them to hand over the jewelry, resulting in the thugs running away. As the boss's henchmen moved cautiously through the jungle, they were suddenly startled. Someone sat quietly beside their path, cloaked in a large hat on his face. One of the black henchmen felt a firm grip on his hand. Annoyed, he demanded, "Take your hand off me." But the stranger remained unmoved. The black henchman, angered by the unyielding grip, prepared to strike. Just then, Liho sprang into action, appearing as if from nowhere. He blocked the henchman's attack and delivered a powerful counterpunch that sent the henchman sprawling to the ground. The other henchman took his stuff and tried to run, but Li Ho, who was standing beside him, stopped and Tong. They told him they were here to finally get him.
No.
However, after that they both stood beside him, while he begged them to spare his life. After defeating the black henchman again, Li Ho grabbed him by his underwear and delivered a series of stinging kicks. Humiliated and in pain, the henchman scrambled to his feet and bolted towards the palace. As he rushed inside, another of the boss's henchmen spotted him and called out, "What happened to you?" But the henchman, too flustered to respond, kept running straight for the boss's chamber. Bursting in, he found the boss seated at his desk. The boss looked up, eyes wide with surprise at the sight of his and panicked subordinate. The boss asked what's going on. The henchman, struggling to catch his breath, quickly reported, "After seeing the chaos outside, I came straight here to inform you. Leo is here, and he's taking down our men one by one." After hearing the henchman, the boss then went back to his seat and started seeing his condition. He then gave the henchman 3 days to find out where they are. After regrouping inside the palace, the henchmen decided to continue their search for Liho and his mysterious companion. They wandered through the palace gardens and eventually came upon a group of women gathered under a canopy of flowering trees. As they approached, one of the women recognized one of the henchmen. With a warm smile, she walked up to him and said softly that the other women miss him. The henchman, caught off guard by her unexpected affection, felt a blush on his cheeks. For a moment, he was completely lost in her words, forgetting why he was there. The memories of their past encounters flooded his mind, and he stood there, shy and flustered. Seeing his comrade distracted, the other henchman gave him a quick, impatient nudge. "We're here on a mission, remember?" He reminded him in a low voice, bringing him back to the urgency of their task. Snapping out of his daze, the henchman turned back to the woman, trying to compose himself. "Have you seen a man without arms or someone without legs around here?" he asked, hoping she might have some information that could help them locate Li Ho and his companion. However, after getting no sort of information, they head out. While on their way, the henchman bumped into a guy who slapped him, and after he started insulting them, calling them dogs. The henchman's men lunged at the man, but he was no ordinary opponent. Meanwhile, back in the palace, the boss was fuming. He paced back and forth, furious at the failure of his men. When the henchmen returned, battered and bruised, he glared at them and spat, "You can't even beat a single man." The henchman, nursing a fresh bruise, stepped forward and said, "Boss, his kung fu is deadly. We couldn't get close to him." The boss paused, considering this information. After a moment, he said, "Then take some weapons. You'll need more than just your fists to handle them." The henchman, still catching his breath from the earlier encounter, had a different idea. "Boss, we should use him to our advantage first. If his skills are that formidable, we could turn him against our enemies. Then, when he's served his purpose, we can dispose of him." The boss's eyes lit up. He stroked his chin thoughtfully, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Interesting. Very interesting. Let's try your plan. But make sure he knows who's in control." The next morning, the man in the white suit was lying. He seems to be told that he will meet a very noble man. Then the henchman approached him, with excitement on his face, and asked him to tell him his name. His name was Ah Pao. The henchman told him his boss wanted to hire him as an escort. Ah Pao approved and went with them to the palace. When he finally met the boss, after the introduction, Ah Pao asked him how much they would pay. The boss, intrigued by the suggestion, leaned back in his chair, a calculating look in his eyes. "Before we use him, I want to see his skills for myself," he said. He nodded to two of his remaining henchmen. The room fell silent, and the boss's eyes widened in astonishment. He had never seen his men taken down so swiftly and decisively. Then, with a curious smirk, he asked, "What's your price?" As if on cue, the room erupted into laughter. On the other hand, Li Ho, who was training with his master, wanted golden treasure. Leo asked him he can't take the golden treasure, so why fight for it? Master told him if he can get it, he will go easily. On the side of the palace, Pao sat at a lavishly set table, quietly enjoying his dinner. The rich aroma of the meal filled the room, and the soft clinking of utensils echoed in the large space. Unbeknownst to him, the boss was watching closely from a concealed spot on the rooftop, peering through a small opening. His eyes were fixed on Pao, studying his every move. Pao, seemingly unaware of being observed, picked up a bottle of alcohol from the table. Instead of drinking it, he tilted it slowly and let the contents spill onto the floor. The liquid spread in a dark, widening pool under the candlelight. After ensuring every drop was wasted, he set the empty bottle down calmly and stood up, walking with purpose towards the interior of the palace. As soon as Pao disappeared inside, Li Ho and his comrades leaped over the palace walls and into the courtyard. They moved silently, their shadows barely visible in the dim evening light. From another direction, Tong, moving with surprising speed and agility, crawled towards the palace, his eyes set on the same goal. As the night deepened over the palace grounds, one of the boss's henchmen stood guard, scanning the area with sharp eyes. Hidden nearby, Li Ho crouched in the shadows, ready to throw a rock to create a distraction. But just as he prepared to act, the henchman moved away, his attention drawn elsewhere. Seizing the opportunity, Li Ho gestured to his companions. At the same moment, Tong, who had been stealthily crawling along the edge of the courtyard, made his way towards the palace entrance. Hearing a subtle signal from their master, a faint tap on the wall, they both slipped inside, moving with silent precision. Inside the palace, the atmosphere was tense and expectant. Li Ho and then Tong entered a chamber filled with ancient artifacts and precious items. The room was lined with shelves that reached high up towards the ceiling, each one holding a variety of treasures. They began inspecting the items, their eyes scanning for something specific. Li Ho's gaze soon fixed on a high shelf, where a faint glimmer caught his eye. He realized it was their target, the golden treasure they had been searching for. Determined to reach it, he turned to Tong and whispered, "We need to get up there." Without hesitation, Tong positioned himself in front of the shelf, and Li Ho lifted him onto his back. With remarkable balance and strength, Li Ho carefully stood up, allowing his companion to reach higher and higher. Tong, with steady hands, stretched out and finally grasped the golden treasure. However, suddenly the henchman came inside, and he called out to everyone that it's Li. Li Ho and his companion, clutching the golden treasure, slipped out of the palace with swift and silent footsteps. They moved through the moonlit garden, their breaths steady as they navigated the shadows. Just as they thought they had made a clean escape, Pao appeared, blocking their path. Despite their evasive maneuvers, Pao's relentless assault continued, and he swiftly closed the distance between them. In a blur of motion, he snatched the golden treasure back from their grasp, holding it firmly in his hand. Then, unexpectedly, Pao paused. His fierce expression softened, and he looked at the golden treasure in his hand. Pao gave the golden treasure back. He told them he can't beat Lin Jinko, and if they combine, they still can't win. He told them to study this treasure and said goodbye. Li was surprised to see his behavior. As Pao made his way back through the palace grounds, he was caught off guard by a sudden, chilling sight. The boss stood in his path, a sinister smile playing on his lips. Pao's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected to face the boss so soon, especially under such circumstances. "Well, Pao," the boss sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "Seems you've taken a liking to thievery. Hand over the horses you stole." Pao's eyes narrowed in confusion. Horses? He hadn't stolen any horses. But before he could respond, Pao lay there, bruised and breathless, his strength spent. On the other hand, Liho told his fellow master that if Ling can't bring the horses, Pao will be eliminated by his master. Li plans on saving Pao and asking the master to save him. On the other side, Pao was being hanged and beaten by the henchmen. Inside the tense atmosphere of the palace chamber, where the boss had just defeated Pao, a sudden interruption startled everyone. A mysterious box appeared in the room, drawing the attention of the boss's remaining henchmen. They crowded around it, arguing fiercely over who should open it first, their voices echoing in the tense silence. One henchman boldly reached for the box. Before he could even lift the lid, an old man, seemingly appearing out of nowhere, struck with surprising speed and strength. The henchman was sent backward, stunned. They managed to save Pao, and more henchmen were headed towards them. Suddenly, their boss came and told them to follow them quietly as he wanted the horses back. However, on their way, Pao told them he was in front of the government. He was sent to investigate the boss's deeds and to find the horses, and his kung fu is so perfect, and he couldn't beat him. In their new surroundings, the old man explained the significance of the 8 jade horses to Pao and his companions. According to him, these ancient artifacts held the key to mastering an unbeatable form of kung fu. Intrigued and determined, Pao and the others immersed themselves in training. Under the old man's guidance, they honed their techniques with a newfound intensity. Each movement became more precise, every strike imbued with purpose. Pao, in particular, showed a relentless dedication, pushing himself to unravel the secrets hidden within the jade horses. As they trained, the realization of the power they could wield began to dawn on them. Suddenly the boss arrived. The old man and the boss started fighting, while Liho and others were training. While on their way back, they saw their entire place completely destroyed, and they started looking for their master Pao to find the note.
I'm here specially to deliver these 2 coffins for you.
While Liho and his ally engaged the henchmen, Pao and the boss continued their fierce struggle. The boss's henchmen, desperate and cornered, pleaded with Pao for mercy. Pao's response was cold and resolute. "You deserve 1,000 demise," he declared, unmoved by the henchmen. With a decisive move, they incapacitated the boss, bringing him to his knees, and the boss was defeated. This was all about our crippled men. How much better the 2 of them could fight if they had a proper functioning body? Comment Crippled below if you enjoyed the movie. Make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.